Singapore. The focus of my brief remarks will be on aligning investment protection treaties with climate change goals. So allow me just to briefly share my slides here, and I believe you see them. As is well known, the battle against climate change requires immense amounts of investment, much of which will be private. And it also requires an immense amount of regulatory adjustment as we attempt to move from carbon-intensive industries and fuels to greener ones. And that raises the question as to whether and how investment protection treaties can be aligned to achieve these goals. It's an issue that states have themselves taken notice of in a 2023 survey of the OECD member states. More than 80% identified aligning investment treaties with the Paris Agreement as important. And this is a critical issue because states continue to use investment protection treaties as a principal policy tool for attracting foreign direct investment. But when states were asked, well, what are the obstacles to aligning your investment protection treaties with the Paris Agreement, the principal reason that was identified was that it's hard to know how to do so. And this can be looked at in two ways, because investment treaties can be seen as playing two roles in the discussion about climate change. From the state perspective, there's first the offensive question. How can we use these investment protection treaties to better attract renewable investments in particular, rather than any investments as they are currently framed? Then the second is the defensive question. How do we ensure that these treaties don't discourage states from pursuing legitimate climate change policies out of concerns that they may face claims or they may be made to pay large compensatory awards? Now, in these brief remarks, I focus on the latter, the defensive question. And that brings us to the question, well, why is it hard to know? And when states were asked, do the interpretations of investor-state arbitral tribunals provide clear parameters on policy space for climate measures? Again, a majority disagreed with that issue, with that question. And why would states find that these ISDS interpretations don't provide clear parameters? I think the answer is found in both the drafting of the investment treaties themselves that states are responsible for, but also in the approach of arbitral decision makers. And it's a tough nut to crack. We could take one example, which is the general exceptions clause frequently found in investment treaties modeled on Article 20 of the GATT. Nothing in this agreement shall be construed to prevent a party from adopting or enforcing measures necessary to protect human, animal, or plant life, including environmental measures. Now, this might be seen as a way of ensuring that states have the regulatory freedom to adopt measures to address climate change. But the interpretation that we've found so far in the two cases that have addressed this particular text is far from reassuring from the state's perspective. The Eco-Oro mining versus Colombia case in point, where the tribunal found that even if the measure fell within the scope of the general exceptions clause, based upon the wording that nothing in this agreement shall be construed to prevent a party, that didn't alleviate the state's obligation to pay compensation for the measure. Now, that remarkable conclusion was reached even in the face of both contracting parties to the treaty, Canada and Colombia, making submissions to the tribunal agreeing that if the general exceptions clause applied, there should be no obligation to pay compensation. So the question that arises is, well, what are the options? If the texts that states haven't used so far aren't working, how do they proceed? And the problem is, of course, that time is late. It's 10 minutes to midnight, if not already past. New phrasing is being adopted in different treaties in different parts of the world, and new phrasing is being explored in the OECD, for example. But again, time is short, and amending treaties requires time, and it's time that states don't have. So I leave with the suggestion that as much as states need to prepare for the future by redrafting and correcting their treaties, they also, arbitral tribunals need to take responsibility for their decision-making in these matters as well. Thank you very much, Marcus.
Thank you so much.